Okay, I want to talk about spiritual abuses and how it's a bit unfair when you're doing your, I mean, it's 101, textbook 101. When you're analyzing for schizophrenia, you have to ask about any cultural influences or religious influences that could be giving you these ideas, because that's, if it's backed by another group's theology, that can't be deemed crazy for an individual. Okay, but you guys never ask me why I believed what I believed or where that came from. What has become a lot more clear to me now is that I've gone through a lot of spiritual abuse. Um, Coming in as a child, I was naturally really spiritually inclined, um, but I think it was abusive, told that I was stupid, and that belief was stupid and weak, and you shouldn't be like faith a faith person because then you suck. And so I was really shamed away from a lot of exploration, that was not nurtured, but the drive was always there. And for me, being a little kid, I just kind of like made up my own thing and didn't had it was like covert spirituality on my part. I had to read in secret. I had to go practice, blessings in the backyard in secret. And I told you I kind of went through all these layers of like spiritual unfolding. Yeah, I basically felt shamed, and also I felt it from my friends. Now, that might be organic. I did tend to gravitate towards, atheists, and I did tend to gravitate towards, not all of them, towards people that were skeptics. But it also could be that people are playing that role to keep me from going towards communities that might kind of tell me that some of the things that your family is doing are satanic. See, I wouldn't get how unusual that was without the opposite presenting that that's not normal. To me, it's normal because it's all I've ever known. So when people are like this and this, but what you never stop to ask me is how I came to the beliefs that I did, and it's kind of really important. So some things you need to know about me. I'm always intensely spiritually curious, though very shamed into atheism. And I agreed with atheism. I came to also agree with atheism. And then found that existentialism was more appropriate. And then told you agnosticism, all this. Now, some of the spiritual abuses that led to the oddities, the spiritual oddities that you're seeing, um, witchcraft was not necessarily hugely glorified in my household. I don't want to mislead you into, but it also was in no way shamed. It was a safe spirituality for me to practice. My father bought me witchcraft tools when I was like 12. And now I kind of see maybe this is playing into some other things I didn't realize, but he's the one who got me everything. He got me books. He kind of like just was like, okay, here, you do this now. And that was safe. That wasn't something that was mocked. Um, I lit a few candles with my father and in prayer for certain things, more manifesting than prayer because God was distinctly not involved. And then when I kept playing on my own years later, right before you found me, I was um, really entrenched in just, I had really gotten spiritually involved. Became one of the most important aspects of my life. Definitely. I was daily partaking in craft. I mean, you can call it witchcraft. I hate to say that title because I think it's raises hairs, but things like blessings or clearing out energies from my room, or doing a prayer for me, or doing a prayer for another, or doing a petition to God. But the difference was I was incorporating God into it. There was not one, I mean, unless I forgot, there was not one prayer that wasn't also handed over to God at the end of me going, and if I'm wrong, save me from my own ego, by the way. And I still do it this way. Um, And that was the covert part because I wasn't allowed to do that. But so when you look at past lives and stuff, where did that start? It started in the household. It wasn't a huge talk. In fact, I don't know that my father was ever personally sold on it. I asked him numerous times, but he did do regressions, and I was taken to people who did regret by my father, who did regressions for me, and I then took that on myself as well to go into a hypnosis institute and take some free classes on it, and I have to say it was really fucking interesting, of the things that came up. But also, it should be said that when you smoke weed, you're more susceptible to these things. It's just fact. Like, if you watch Who Can Get Hypnotized, Who Can't, the stoned one is always the first one to get hypnotized, and I would go in notoriously stoned. So, like, also that, I can't discount that. There were very few times I was hypnotized when I wasn't stoned on marijuana. Like, oh, yeah. But I don't mean to discount it, but, like, also that. And so when you, like, how could you believe in multiple lives? Well, it's not that weird. There's huge populations of the world that believe in multiple lives that claim to do what I was saying. And now at this point, I just don't know. I feel incredibly disheartened by all of it because I think that without a shadow of a doubt, I watched friends sabotage me with that and pretend to believe in things that they didn't to get cameras for it. And I would be like, oh, wow, okay. And I wouldn't necessarily always believe them, but I was like, okay, who am I to negate any of this? That's true for you. And I was a very open-minded person. So there's that, is kind of, that became abusive, spiritual abuse. But then in the very start of Star Wars, this was most unfortunate because, quite frankly, I had a nervous breakdown several times in the beginning of Star Wars. But I don't think that's abnormal psychology. I think anybody would, given the circumstances. And I really mean that statement. You don't know what it was like. I went from having relationships in my life for 20 years that I could trust. I thought I could trust. I went around feeling not scared of life or people, maybe a little, but not really, and very open to adventure. That's how I lived my life all up until Star Wars was choose your own adventure today. And just with an openness to my own life adventure and a willingness to discover the serendipity in God. And then the mistake, because I had no spiritual guidance that I made, is I was such a spiritual person, such an open-minded person, that I would just be like, okay, God, show me the thing today. And when people would present information or people would present spiritual viewpoints, I'd be like, oh, wow, that's God speaking. And it's like, and I would be like, it's serendipity, because some things were so uncanny and coincidental that I'd be like, it's got to be God, because how could it be a coincidence? Not yet realizing that it's all systematically set up, and that a lot of these people that are coming in with God's information are actually false prophets who work for a satanic cult. And so I did get derailed many times, admittedly, but having such an openness and a need for God that I'd be like, wow, like it's basically in desperation as well, of being like, okay, and so it is. And when Star Wars hit me, I went from having, so when you look at psychology, normal psychology and abnormal psychology, you need, as a sociologist, I'm not a psychologist, as a sociologist, I can tell you that there are two factors that most affect you sociologically that are predictive of any person, any normal person having a breakdown. And these breakdowns can even lead to death. It can be that severe. And I went through that formula. I still go through it. I still go through it, but very, very hard, very, very suddenly. And that I went from having a very structured life to having a anime. It's just a very unstructured life, and just nothing, no structure. All of a sudden, that was ripped from me. I worked all the time, and I would like have every day planned of the week, and then this day I'll hang out with my friends, and then this day I will work, and then this I will work on this, and it was all always very planned. And then all of a sudden it went to, you have no plans, everything is, you don't know anything anymore, and now you're thrust into this game of Star Wars, and fucking you don't even know the rules. And so I felt like I can't even make plans because everything is thwarted, and because I don't understand the rules of the game of which I'm asked to survive. That's the hardest part of Star Wars. I don't get the rules. No one has, keep in mind, not once have the rules been explained to me. I don't get what's going on. That's not fair. And the other thing is that, all I know is that I can't get violent. That's all I know of the rules, is I can't get violent or I'll get locked up, most severely off very little. That's all I know. And so that's why I hold my tongue everywhere, and I told, I take so much shit like a little bitch, is because I think that's the rules. And that's not helped me at all. That has hurt me hugely to be like that, and even been used against